Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play podcast. Welcome to the show. Today we have an old friend of mine and an old colleague of mine, okay? And he's decided, well, let's not say decided, he's agreed to join in, I think, Matt, today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Matt. Good to see you. Matthew Taylor, otherwise known as Matt, co-founder of a very interesting business that I have had the pleasure of working with, and B, been a client of, I might add. A company called Common Ground, a marketing specialist marketing-based business, which we'll let Matt explain more about in a few minutes' time. Matt's the co-founder. Dan Bianchini is Matt's business partner. Dan's not with us today. He's back at the factory doing work, I hope. And on the website, we have some very interesting statements, which I believe that Matt actually was just telling me a few minutes ago will be redeveloped in the near future. But they are as follows. Be visible, get leads, earn more. Pretty direct, love it. Then we go on to say, let's get your business to the next level through data-driven SEO, PPC, and social media campaigns. And I know that these guys can do this because I have been on the receiving end of it. So that's my intro. Enough of me waffling on, Matt. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Common Ground and your story to date, please?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, our website, as you may have noticed, is very raunchy. It says what it does on the tin, essentially. A quick background to the business. I won't go through this in much detail. Dan and I actually used to work together probably about 15 years ago now for a digital marketing agency. I left around 2013, set up my own business. Dan left a couple of years later. And then in 2018, we figured out there was very little point in being competitors to each other. And so decided to merge our businesses. Prior to that, I mean, there was a lot of reasons why we did that at that stage, because we are both similarly ambitious. We both agreed how you do digital marketing, treat your team, build a business, run a business. And quite frankly, we both had young children. So it's significantly easier to run a business when there's two of you, and you can do things like take time off and completely switch off. So it's worked really well for us. So our growth since then has been kind of exponential. As Alice, you alluded to, we are a specialist digital marketing agency. So digital marketing is a bit of a catch-all. We actually do search engine optimization, paid advertising across Google and the social networks, and content as well. So they're the three broad areas of what we offer to people. And again, it's for companies of all different sizes as well. So the thing that relates all of the businesses that we currently work with is they're equally as ambitious to us. They're looking to really use digital marketing to drive their growth. And they're happy to kind of take our advice and implement and kind of move things forward. And that's the kind of the clients that we like to work with. But at the moment, it really does vary from kind of startups and new businesses right up to people who are dominant within their market, and equally kind of people with relatively low budgets to people like literally international companies with like millions of dollars worth of kind of ad spend budget in a year. So we've got the whole range of clients in there, but it's the thing that relates them is we are there. They're looking to be ambitious and grow using digital marketing, which is the people that we want to work with, really.
Yeah, and let's just pause there for thought, because you make a great point, don't you? The listener or the viewer may be resonating with around the fact that many times small businesses are struggling with the kind of people they work with because they're not a great fit. Remember the old adage, do they have a pulse and do they have a checkbook? And if they do, we'll do some work with them. But of course, you don't get to be as successful as Common Ground has been over time if you're not very targeted and very, I want to say, value driven. And what you're talking about, I'm hearing values. You value open people that want to listen and learn. You value people that are ambitious, and you value people that want to invest in digital marketing. I mean, that's cool, right? So tell us more about values, Matt. I mean, keep that thread going now. Are you actually sharing your values with your customers or your prospective customers? Are you using them to kind of almost filter out what you might perceive as being a bad fit, or What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. We use the values that we have all the time. They're not kind of explicitly related to the customers, although obviously with any good business, our values have to come through absolutely everything we do. So the way that the team work will demonstrate the values to the clients as well. But it is definitely the case of obviously, when you start a business, you're kind of almost in a scarcity mindset. So it is who's going to give me money, who's going to pay my bills this month. And as you grow, and you kind of learn who you work most effectively with, then you can kind of, you need to start prioritizing those people over just anybody who's coming to you. We've been through stages where we've turned down clients because they weren't the right fit for us. So ultimately, it's with any business, it's a people business. So if we're not thinking that we're going to work together well, or they're just there to tick the SEO box, for example, they're not the sorts of people that we can, ultimately, they're not the sorts of people who can deliver results for, because they're not going to be the people implementing and taking stuff on board. And so finding the people who are ambitious and go, digital marketing is where I'm going to put my marketing resources. It can, like, we have transformational impact on businesses if they trust us and they're ambitious and they're willing to invest in digital. People who are there to kind of tick a box, they're the people where you'll get kind of 10-20% growth, but you should be looking for kind of more exponential growth than that, really.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to use the phrase "tick the box," because that as you know, I've been doing this a million years, which is why I look like this and you look like that. But you have to laugh at my rubbish jokes, Matt. The rules are still the same, okay?
I'm quite glad that anybody thinks that I still look relatively young and kind of healthy at this point. I've got 2 children, so I would have looked healthier a couple of years ago. So.
You do look young. Take it from me. Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot, by the way, just to say in the small business world where, okay, so let's be absolutely candid here. The average technician-owned small business still does not understand marketing, right? Let's just admit it. So they're God-fearing, brilliant people, and they're trying very hard every day. I met with one last week. Classic example, second generation, been in business for probably 40 years in total. Zero marketing, none. It's like, and I'm like, how on earth does this work? So I could see what you mean there about the tick the box and SEO, because when people have got a modicum of experience, that becomes a need. But of course, yeah, if you're ambitious and you want more, you've got to be working with a business like Common Ground. That makes total sense. Okay, tell us about the team, because we've mentioned values from a client perspective, Matt. In what ways are you and Dan making sure that the team understand the values and live them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to have these kind of mission, vision statements and values that are kind of theoretical, and you roll them out every now and again, essentially. But we do really try and kind of use ours and refer to ours all the time for decision making. So broadly, from a values point of view, we actually go with the kind of Simon Sinek how, what, why, but to kind of relate them into kind of the more traditional values. Kind of the biggest one, we changed it from being accountability to ownership, essentially. So although they sound very similar things, kind of ownership is slightly different. I read quite a lot of books. So this one actually comes from Jocko Willink, the ex-Navy SEAL in America. So he's around kind of ownership. And the way that we kind of get people and encourage people to do that is having ownership within kind of decisions within their role, or if results are great, they have ownership of those results. In a similar way, if results for a client aren't going as well as we want, they have ownership in order to kind of, that's my problem, I need to come up with a solution to that. I can obviously call on the resources from everybody else in the business, and Dan and I will support, but ultimately any business gets to a point where you need to scale and other people need to make those decisions. They need to be empowered to make those decisions, essentially. So we are always looking for our team to demonstrate ownership, and we kind of give them and encourage them as much as we possibly can from that point of view. So they have the ability to make decisions completely autonomously from Dan and I. We have a kind of a general policy. If Dan and I don't have to make a decision, we don't make it. Whoever's doing that particular thing, we'll delegate it down to kind of the lowest level we possibly can, because it's not really for Dan and I, for example, to say, you know, exactly how one of our processes works. For example, our content process, Dan and I designed it, but the ownership of that goes to our content manager, because they do that on a day-to-day basis. They have a much better understanding of how that works on a actual on the ground kind of feel to it. So why should Dan and I make that decision? We give them the ownership to go, actually, this needs to be changed. We need to change this. As long as we have a process that we can repeat and delivers the results, then that's all Dan and I are looking for, essentially. The exact how is not something that we need to concern ourselves with. The other areas are kind of like we have a focus, we have drive and process, the other three values that we have. And it's in reality, it's focusing on what delivers results for both us and the clients. So within digital marketing, some agencies have a bad reputation because they'll sell you things because they can sell it to you, not because you need it, and it's not going to relate back into your business goal, essentially. So we're very ruthless in so far as, if this does not relate to a business goal, either for us or for the client, us is when we're doing internal things, but when we're doing client work, if it doesn't immediately focus onto a result that the client wants to drive, then we don't do it. There's no point. The client needs that you need that focus, essentially, to deliver the results. Drive, we always have a desire and a kind of to be better. So essentially with the team, we have a really thorough PDP process. So and we also map out progression as well. So we're always looking to kind of promote from within, is one of the big ways that we kind of live that value. So for example, Sam, who is our head of delivery operations, she joined 5 years ago. She came for a role as an account manager, didn't actually get that. I persuaded her to do paid advertising, and she's worked her way up through paid advertising and now oversees the entire delivery side of the business. So it's kind of doing that so people can see, actually, if I have the drive, the ambition to deliver the results to the clients, to improve myself, that gets recognised within the business as well.
So you said, thank you for that share, by the way.
That's okay.
Really great. There's very few businesses that we speak to in this context that are so clear on their values and how they execute and live them. So, you know, the viewer no doubt will have, I was staying very quiet there to just give you the platform to really you know, share. So I hope the viewer really did connect with what Matt was saying there. If not, go back and re-listen, because there's some critical points in there. Let's just pick out one, and that, well, actually two, because the secondary point underpins the first point. So you mentioned ownership.
Yeah.
See, that's a key word, isn't it? Own a ship, right? Let's stay out of all the cliches that sit in that space. But in order for a leader like you to give people ownership, there has to be a framework of responsibility, doesn't there? They have to understand exactly what they can and what they can't do. And secondly, this is the second point, you have to have absolute confidence in their talent and their ability to execute, their skill sets, their commitment, their attitude, because otherwise you'd be in danger of abdicating, which is, in our language, as you'll remember probably, management by hope. And management by hope's not getting us anywhere. So yeah, just expand on those 2 points. Number one, making sure that the framework is in place for them to operate within the ownership label. And secondly, how do you, you mentioned PDP, personal development planning, but just go a little deeper into that. It's really important.
Yeah, so the kind of from an ownership point of view, that essentially every business, or in my particular view, every business is a group of processes, essentially. So as long as you have the right processes in place, you can recreate success over and over again, effectively. Yeah. So the way that we do that and give people ownership is they know the process, they know they have the freedom to amend that if it's not giving us the results that they want. But the thing that we have had to improve on significantly, and we hope that we're doing a really good job, is sharing the information that they need in order to make the correct decisions using the processes that we have. So Dan and I actually share, like, our entire team know our P&L, they know kind of our capacity, they know what clients we're working with, they know if they bothered to work them out, they could probably figure out our margins, our profit and everything like that. And a lot of business owners will keep that secret from their team. And that doesn't allow people to make an informed decision. So you need to be able to give people, you need to trust people with that information. And quite frankly, I don't, to a certain extent, there's probably things in there that they don't need to know. Sure. And it may on occasion have the opposite effect of what you want, that you might give them too much information. But you've got to be able to trust your team to make a decision, and the only way that they can do that is if you want them to make a decision that you're going to make, give them the information that you have.
Sure.
Essentially.
So yeah, I mean, well, I mean, there's great content in there for everybody. I think the overarching word that springs to mind as I'm listening to you is culture. It's been a while since I've seen you, and Dan. Also, I want to measure it probably in years since I spent a little time with Dan. I want to say congratulations, Matt, because to have evolved your culture in the way that you have means that you and Dan have evolved, because of course, as we know, these things are all a reflection of the leadership team, the people that are driving the business. So that's a phenomenal thing. Awesome stuff. What a culture, you know? Okay.
Yeah, and it's not easy either, because we've gone, since we last spoke, we've gone 100% remote. So building a culture while you're 100% remote, which is why you're getting the lovely view of my study right now, can be challenging, because you're not there every day, you're not seeing people, so you have to have additional mechanisms in place to kind of build that, and the trust as well there, because essentially you're not able to keep an eye on everybody at every minute of the day, but nor should you have to. If you've got the right people in,
you're back to ownership those people.
And you're giving them the ownership and the autonomy. Then you can kind of build that trust. I wouldn't say easily, but you can build that trust.
Spot on. I mean, now as you're mentioning buildings, I've got memories here of the building that you used to be in, and some consternation around next steps after that. I seem to recall, just for the viewer, for the listener, I had the pleasure of doing some specific coaching with Matt and Dan. I don't know, it's way before COVID, so we've got to be going back 5 or 6 years now, I think. It's quite a long time. But clearly, everything that I taught you've done. So I'm going to put my ego away. I'm only pulling you a little bit, by the way. Just I tell crap jokes, as you know. So well done, interesting steps. So tell us more, a little bit about that, because I was going to talk about vision and plan next. So is the vision to remain remote? Where are you taking the business next then, Matt?
So I mean, literally we couldn't go back to having an office, because we've got people from Cornwall to Glasgow, essentially. So I think midway is somewhere like Stoke or something, and it's not so it's not feasible for us to have an office.
Don't move to Stoke. My advice would be don't move to Stoke. No disrespect to Stoke if you get from Stoke.
Exactly. But it's we found that it works a lot better for us, because we can recruit talent from anywhere. It was one of the big problems that we had locally, is there's not a huge amount of talent within the digital marketing space locally. So we just opened it up. I'll be honest, it was I was not a particularly willing remote worker when we started. I was like, for a lot of people during COVID, but I've really come to enjoy it, embrace it. I think it's really good. I don't think personally, there's elements I like to get out and I'll go and work from a cafe or something, just to have some more people around, but I don't think I could necessarily go back to an office environment, and I don't see the particular benefits of that. I've gone off on a tangent now, but it's again, It's one of the big things we have, again, going back to the kind of the ownership thing and the trust, is we have really flexible working conditions, because Dan and I do school run twice a day. Dan and I go to the gym separately, not together. That'd be weird. And like during the day, so we kind of try to, as far as we can, to give our team the freedom to do exactly the same. So we have core hours, which are 10 till 2 Monday to Thursday and 10 till 12 on a Friday. Around that, as long as the hours get done, the work gets done, and we're available for client meetings, people can work whenever they want. They have the freedom to come and go and nip out for stuff. And again, it's giving them the ownership of their timetable and their schedule, and when they work most effectively. It's one of the, I'll be honest, it's probably the benefit that we have, which get the biggest feedback and biggest positive feedback on, is our flexible working.
I think this is an incredible story. I love the cultural evolution and the share today. I'm underlining some stuff here in my notes. Matt, well done. Really good. Okay, let's talk a little bit, just before we leave team. What I'm interested, it may be a tricky one to answer this. What's the average retention of an employee for Common Ground these days? How long are people staying vis-a-vis the new culture and the remote working and the ownership-based culture that you're driving here? Are people embracing it and staying, or do you find that there's a little churn because it doesn't suit some people? How's it look?
It's definitely a mixture. Essentially, it's the right people stay for a long time. So, for example, I use the example of Sam, our head of delivery. Yeah, she's been here 5 years, which is almost as long as the business has been around. Shane, again, he's been here he joined in lockdown, so again, he's been here a really long period of time. But like, we have had churn essentially, but it's partially, there's kind of lots of different elements at play. We found that some people don't particularly like remote. So if people don't have other people that they see during the day or pets, they can feel that they can get a bit lonely, despite we try and get in quite a lot of social things and activities and meetings. It doesn't suit everybody, so we've had people come and go with that. But I think we've also, as the business has grown and Dan and I have become more, have kind of developed, I guess, we've also kind of been a lot more aware of, if you've got the right person, keep the right person. If you've got the wrong person, just get rid of that person, either of their own choice, or should you have to, we unfortunately have had to make people redundant just because they're not the right fit for us. It's not that they're not good at what they're doing, but what we need is a particular skill set and a particular mindset. So if they don't have that, there's no point in trying to. The one thing that I have learned is, realistically, you can't change certain elements of a person around kind of mindset, or it's incredibly difficult. Attitude, mindset, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so, very difficult subject matter. I mean, just to jump in there for a second, one of my little coaching pieces, as you might remember, is the difference between marmite players and marmalade players. You know, the sweet and sticky crowd that want to please everybody because they think incorrectly that's the way to do business well. The people that succeed in business, the level 3 business owners that we talk a lot about on this podcast, people like you, by the way, are marmite players. They have a distinct flavor, and people either get it or they don't get it, and it's right. Sometimes they will self-eject. Sometimes you've got to eject. It's not anything other than doing business correctly. If it's not right for one, it's not right for the other. End of. So listen, Matt, when's it finished, mate? When have you done with this business? When are you and Dan